Good evening, everyone. Welcome to EduTalk 8's fifth live session. I am Dr. Annette Walker. This evening, I have with me the other two co-founders of this podcast, Dr. Shawnee Hardware and Trevor Cole, Principal of Annette. Today, we'll be exploring school administrators' work and occupational well-being in challenging times as a follow-up to our last session. Thank you to our members of the audience who are here with us today. We're also streaming live on our EduTalk 876 YouTube channel. As educators and hosts, we explore Jamaican education system and the lived realities of educators working in classrooms and leading schools across the country. At EduTalk 876, we also partner with the educational stakeholders across private and governmental levels to inform education policy, articulation, creation, execution, and evaluation. Our esteemed panelist this evening is Mr. Valentine Bailey, who is a proud past student of Camperdown High School. He's also principal at Camperdown High School. He spent 11 years in the private sector working in the life insurance industry. He started teaching in 1996 after completing a degree in history and a diploma in human resource management. Mr. Bailey holds a diploma in teaching and currently is in the process of completing a master's in educational administration. He's also a certified school principal at the National College of Educational Leadership. Mr. Bailey was promoted in 2001 and served as a vice principal for upper school, and in 2010, he was appointed principal. We also have with us this evening Mr. Sophia Shorter-Reynold. She has been an educator for over 2 decades, 23 years to be exact. For her, teaching is not merely a profession, but her vocation. Her philosophy in education is enabling all students to direct their own lived realities while honing their skills in order to reach their full potential. This simple statement underpins the decisions she takes as an educator and as an administrator. Mrs. Reynolds is a specialist in business education. She holds a professional qualification for principalship, a master's of business administration, a bachelor of business administration, and a diploma in business education, among other professional qualifications. Mrs. Reynolds is currently serving as a vice principal of McGrath High School. Her portfolio as a vice principal includes managing the technical vocational education and training department and upper school 4th to 6th forms. She's currently in capacity development and training of various categories of staff. We also have with us Dr. Oneil Ankle, who is an author, motivator, and educational leader. He's the principal at the Jonathan Grant High and former principal at Green Park Primary and Junior High. He's also the LASCO Ministry of Education former Principal of the Year 2007-8 recipient of the Prime Minister's Medal of the Appreciation for Contribution to Education in 2017. Mm-hmm. So this evening, we're going to start with Mr. Trevor Cole, who will be asking our host a question. Go ahead, Mr. Cole. Unmute your mic.
Trevor, you need to unmute, please.
I'm sorry about that. So thank you, panelists, and thank you to our audience for joining us this evening. In our last podcast, we discussed with school leaders the complexities of principalship, added to the demands it has on personal and professional life. Although school leaders operate in different communities and contexts, they function as interconnected parts of the collective dynamic system. Similar to our last podcast, we want to start by asking you a very important question, panelists. How are you doing on a personal level? Let me start with Mrs. Reynolds. Mrs. Reynolds, how are you doing on a personal level? And then we will move to Dr. Ankle.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this podcast today. That question the answer to that vacillates from day to day, time to time, depending on the moment you ask me. But right now, I am doing well because I have the mindset that will help me to take me through the week and the months and time to come. There are days when I feel a bit overwhelmed with the myriad of responsibilities and the requests coming at my desk. And everything basically seems to be at the same time that you need to get them done. But right now, I'm at a good place. Thank you.
All right, good. Dr. Ankle, what about you? How are you?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my fellow colleagues. Ms. Reynolds, Valentine, bless yourself. Love yourself. Right. I have made a conscious decision not to allow the stressors of education coming through the Ministry of Education to get the better of me. A conscious decision, because I've recognized that the stresses, the worries, the troubles, everything that come at you will cause you to put yourself in a kind of can. Yeah. And so if you ask me, like what Ms. Reynolds has said, I'm at a good place. Yeah, I'm at a good place because I've made a conscious decision not to allow my head to hurt me. What you can't change, what you can't fix, you leave it.
I like that. I like that. Custodian, right?
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Bailey, what about you? How are you doing on a personal level?
Well, good evening to everybody here, my colleagues, Sir Uncle, Lady Reynolds, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. The truth is currently I'm not good. I am trying to figure out how to help some of my students pay for their CSEC exams. Yeah. So when I left school today, I have about 16 names on my head. We have not heard from their parents. And we are trying to get in touch with their parents. And, you know, those things, unfortunately, you take home those things. I'm here trying to figure out how can we help these students? So right now, at this moment, I'm not at a good place. I guess when I figure that out, I'll be better. So I'm trying to formulate a strategy. Do I go to the homes? Do we call? What do we do? But we need to get to the parents because exam fees are due. And these are 16 lives that we need to get up and running. They have to sit their exam. So that's where I'm at right now.
Oh,
but
okay.
I take it, I give God thanks and I try to take it day by day.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. No I hope that through this medium, somebody may offer some assistance, somebody listening in, 16 students who are in need. So we understand, sir, but we also want to make sure that you are well too, because it's important that you take care of yourself so you can help to take care of others. But thank you so much for sharing.
No problem.
So I hand over to Dr. Hardware.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cole. So on the heels of that, I understand, you know, the needs for the exam fees to be paid. You know, these are very challenging times for parents with, especially in terms of precarious work, and perhaps not knowing where those fees are coming from. So hopefully, you know, someone listening in might be able to sponsor some of the students. And we also know, added to those stressors that Dr. Ankle mentioned, the constant shift, whether you're doing face-to-face or hybrid or online schools. And there have been numerous changes in policy and policy direction over the past year and a half, even more recently this year with extension of the sixth form program and the need for some schools to offer face-to-face learning versus some schools remaining, you know, hybrid or online. So with these numerous changes, we want to know what are some of the measures you have implemented to address the challenges and demanding associated with your work over the last year and a half. And I see you smiling, Dr. Ankle. So are you reverent to go? We'll take Mrs. Reynolds, and then we'll go to Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. When I think about that question, I look at it in a two-pronged manner, personally and professionally. Professionally, communication is key. Communication with the key stakeholders, the parents, the students, the teachers. Transparency is key. So we use different media to get to these key stakeholders and to get them on board and to get them sensitized as to what to expect. As you said, various changes, it's hybrid, it's not, it's face-to-face, and it's online, right? So each time that changes take place, we have to engage our stakeholders. Another thing that we had to do is to train the persons that are going to be directly reaching these students, and that's the teachers. Constant training and upgrade, so to speak. Another aspect is creating groups so that we can reach persons instantly and in large volumes, such as using the social media like WhatsApp and so on. So transparency, communication, training in order to provide the necessary knowledge and support to carry out various tasks. And even parents and students were trained as well to use the online platform, for example.
Interesting. Okay, Mrs. Reynolds, I will now hand over to Mr. Bailey and then Dr. Ankle.
All right. Well, if somebody said that I would be planning for disruptions, I would laugh at them. In March of 2020, if you said that on the 11th of March, that, come next year, you're going to plan for disruptions, I say, what are you talking about? And so now when we plan, we have a plan A, B, C, and sometimes a plan D. And so we plan, and this is what we try to do. We plan for regular school, but we say no, if there is not regular school, then we go to plan A, plan B. And if plan B is not working, then we go to plan C. So you're looking at hybrid, you're looking at the regular face-to-face, and you're looking at totally online. It is interesting also that even your strategic plan is now a different strategic plan, because we have now learned a lesson. We have made so many assumptions because the system has been steady for years. We have made assumptions steady forever. And so now we are saying, what if? And it doesn't have to be an outbreak. It could be
something else.
What if? And the what if leads you now to look at your systems. What have you? What is it we have in place that can take us through in terms of if we are not in school for whatever reasons? How do we improve that? How do we ensure that the students are involved and are learning? Just as Mrs. Reynolds said, we also, communication has, not that it wasn't important, but it has tripled, because you have to keep communicating with your parents. You have to keep communicating with your staff. And I deliberately said staff because we tend to ignore our admin and ANSIL staff in the mix. And it's not just about our teachers. And so other systems were put in place. I want to tell you that I've been having even more meetings with my HODs, my heads of department, because in the current context with the whole learning loss and students being missing, that aspect, not that it wasn't salient, but it has become even more salient. So you now have to keep looking at your numbers and what is happening in the classroom. Are we reaching the kids? Or are we teaching? What can we improve? And so there are constant meetings, even more. I think I've met with the HODs maybe about 12 times since September. We had a meeting just here. Yes, because we have to keep looking at what is happening.
The numbers.
Yes, are we getting anywhere? Another thing that, again, we have had to step up on is our gifts department. And our gifts department is our guidance intervention, teachers, family and teacher services. We don't call it the guidance department anymore. So we have broad scope, right? So we call it gifts. Their function has shifted significantly. And now they have to do far more work, not only with students, but also with parents. And with staff. Again, I say staff because we had meetings with our unbid and absent staff in terms of how the pandemic is affecting them also. So our planning and other changes have been made in terms of what we are doing. So, I mean, it hasn't been easy. Things keep shifting, but put it this way, we understand that things will shift. And so we try to prepare as best as possible for those shifts.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. And I love, the stress on communication that's coming out of this. And I know teaching online too is a lot of communication. If the students are absent, you want to find out what's happening as a part of that engagement plan, but also as a form of caring, right? And accountability. So thank you for sharing that, Mr. Bailey and Mrs. Reynolds. Dr. Ankle, over to you.
Well, Dr. Hardware, I could easily have said ditto to everything that was said just now.
But you won't, right?
Right. I've never held so many meetings in all my life as a principal. Never. Because I have to be constantly finding out what is happening, as my colleague Valentine has said, constantly, HOD, grade coordinators, parents, students, everybody. And because we are in this flux where I can have a meeting at 7 o'clock at night, previously this would not have happened. You could not call a teacher to a meeting at 7 o'clock. You couldn't. Not even 5 o'clock, let alone 7. No, I'm calling meeting at 6:30 and 7. Parents at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. At night, when I'm supposed to be in my bed, I'm calling parents because that is the convenient time to meet with these parents. And this is what this whole pandemic has led us to in order to communicate with our stakeholders, our clients, our customers in a most effective way. And when we talk about communicating with our clients, it's not only teachers, as Valentine said, we are communicating with everybody, the board, the students, the parents, teachers, everyone, just to find out what is happening. And so, because the dynamics changes so often, you have to call these meetings, you have to put the necessary things in place to ensure that things are working. You need the reports on time, even though you did reports when you were face-to-face. Now you need the report to find out exactly what is happening at a particular grade. And I tell you this, as a principal, Ms. Reynolds and Sir Bailey, I am in every WhatsApp group, because I need to know what is happening on every front. So if something happens, trust me, I am touching it almost immediately. Grade coordinator, tell me what is happening here, right? It's rough, but you know, that is what has happened, and this is what has happened to the operation over the last 18 to 20 months. Your life has changed and changed to facilitate what is happening before you. And will that change after when COVID dies down? Perhaps a little.
Yeah, maybe. Well, before I pass it over to Dr. Walker, just to say, recognizing well, I wouldn't want to say contradiction, but even here, we're going through a similar shift where parents, we were in some focus group session, and parents are asking for more flexibility around communication and time to meet, teachers. So some are suggesting weekend meetings, like teacher meetings after dark as a way of being accessible to them and their schedule. But at the same time, there's a push here I think it's the Ministry of Labor, sending out a policy where employees are not supposed to answer email outside of their hours, and they have the right not to respond to that. So it's how do you be responsive as a teacher or as an educator? I'm not entirely sure if it impacts educators in the K-12 system here, but there is a push because workers have been complaining about how burnt out they are and the continuous email. So I think, you know, there needs to be a meet in the middle. But let me pass over to Dr. Walker. Yes, and leave it there.
Thank you so much. As the conversation, I can hear the passion and the concerns being expressed among all three of you. So just by listening to you, I reflect on some of the historical issues that we have been having in Jamaica, specifically as it pertains to lack of resources, the inadequate resources to essentially meet students' needs. And I know that Mr. Bailey touched a little bit on the lack of financial resources to help the students essentially who are struggling in terms of making payment. And so in addition to that and other issues, of inequities, I should say, we know that the pandemic has created a sharper focus on all of these issues. And so given the universal challenge that principals are essentially experiencing, I'm just asking now, what systems or mechanisms have you employed to garner or solicit support for your school, just to ensure that there's quality teaching, that it is maintained and learning is not impacted? And I know now that you're instructional leaders, virtual instructional leaders.
Right.
and so you talk about the timing, etc. But just what systems or mechanisms have you employed or garner or solicit support for your school to ensure quality teaching is maintained and learning is not impacted? So I'm going to I'll ask the lady first, Mrs.
Thank you. Looking at that question very closely, off the top of my head, we had device drive because the students had to have had devices in order to be able to come online. We are to do an investigation now as to the impact of the device drive in terms of those who got the device, did they make full use of it? That's another conversation. Another support that we put in place was the Student Services Department that had the three principals, the principal, the two vice principals, guidance counselor, the HFLE teacher, and others to basically respond very quickly to the changes and the needs of our stakeholders, the students, the parents, and so on. If it is training, if it is just to talk things through, just to be accessible for us to listen to them and help them to grapple with the changes because they have lost their jobs, they are not online, how do they get devices, just to listen. Another thing was the continuous discussion about the learning loss and how to bridge these gaps. And we would have it at the general level, senior level, middle management. We would have it also among junior staff and so on. Constant dialogue, how to reach these students. So we would look back at the curricula and take out what is important that they need to do to have mastery. So the unit plans will have to be flexed, so to speak, to be modified. We would have to modify our lesson plans. We would have to look at common planning where teachers of the same subjects converse as to how best to teach the students. Another thing that we did was training and support for teachers, admin, and SIL, and students and parents. Training, because there are a number of them are using the online platform for the very first time, and they need to know how to use it. And also the ANSIL staff, because when parents come in and students come in anxious to get help, sometimes it's the ANSIL staff that they see first. So the ANSIL staff are basically customer service reps then, and guide them as to where to go to get help. And they have been instrumental in that. We also look at the hybrid model. As you know, the synchronous and asynchronous learning, and how best to reach these students. Some students are online because they have the internet, they have the devices. Some are not. Some are online sometimes. So they can go into the classroom, see the postings of the teachers, the different materials, whenever it is that they have internet. Also, those students who have never seen a device, they're not online at all for whatever reason, they also get support through the print and package. As to the efficacy of these things, a study will have to be done, but we do try to respond to the different needs. And I could go on, but I don't want to monopolize the platform.
Recommendations, good stuff happening. Yes.
Thank you so much. So you've shared quite a lot. I'm hoping that our other panelists will also provide some additional information as it pertains to that question. So I'm going to go to Mr. Bailey.
All right. Thank you again. I confess that, and based on what you asked, in terms of what did we put in place to ensure that quality teaching took place, I confess that when we closed, we were, for about a week or two, we were nowhere mentally. It hit us hard, and we had to pick ourselves off the floor and we started to try and figure out how do we reach our students, what would be the format, so on and so on. And for a while, we had different things happening. Teachers were using Zoom. Some are using WhatsApp to teach a student. Some went to Google Suite. People paid out of their pockets. We did some work on our school management system to have a LMS component. So we had about 4 or 5 things happening that we tried to use to reach them, to make sure that we were teaching. But the thing that hit us was that it was still not as coherent as we would like. And so I guess by September of last year, we were able to put some things in place. We started the training. We coalesced around 2 systems, Google Suite and Zoom. And we started to realize that the training component was important. I think about 70% of the staff were afraid of the technology. And I don't know if Dr. Ankle and Lady Reynolds had that problem where when we talked about technology, the team felt that all they needed was a PowerPoint and you were good.
Still having it, Valentine.
Still having it, okay. And so we had to spend some time trying to get the teachers to understand that the PowerPoint is not the technology. I tried to immerse myself into what was happening in the world in terms of the research and how best to enhance the teaching and learning process. That's where I went. I found out about TPAC and the community of inquiry, and those things you try to say to your teachers. These are some of the things we have to use in the teaching and learning process to try and make sure that there's quality. For the most part, those were some of the challenges we had. We are far better now. We have come a long way, and we have teacher experts now. So that was where we were. I don't know if that answers the question.
It certainly does. We know that context matters, and certainly resources too will determine some of the issues or the limitations, and those kinds of things. So we're going to move to Dr. Ankle. Thank you so much, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Reynolds. Dr. Ankle, your perspectives?
Yeah, well, for me, or for us, we are far better than where we started, than when we started some 18, 20 months ago. Because when we started, like what Valentine said, is as if we were feet feeling our way through this. Teachers were using phones, teachers were using anything that they could find to try and reach their students. And there are times when teachers will complain and come to me and say, sir, my phone has crashed. I have nothing to use. I can't get to these students. And it's like you have your hand on your head and said, what do? You don't have anything to offer to the teacher. You don't have a laptop. You don't have a tablet to give to the teacher, because this was new to us. But since we started compared to now, we are far better off. I've put together our team, innovative and technology team. They are the ones, they do the training, they give the support to the teachers who are having trepidation with the technology and so on. If you have a problem, you call them up and they will help you and so on. So we are far better. We are in a better place, better structure and so on. And in terms of support, I must say, and I heard Dr. Hardware said something, and I must tell you this, that every principal is a professional medical.
Is a professional what?
Every principal is a professional medical, because you have to learn to beg to get what you want. And part of trying to fix this gap in the technology, we had to go out there and beg, whether past student or other stakeholders. We had to put ourselves out there so that we can get gadgets to give to those who don't have. And I heard Ms. Reynolds said something about content package. We decided that, hello, somebody, we gonna have our academic content packages put together for those who can't be reached in a technological or a virtual way, and so they come pick up and so on. So it's a whole different dynamics. But compared to when we started in March of 2019 or 2020, we are at a better place. Yes, there are some teachers who are still struggling with the technology, and we are trying our best to get them up to scratch. They're still not using what the government requires us to use, but we are at a far better place today, and we are getting some help from private sector, past students, parents. Some persons just want to make sure students are being reached one way or the other. So I would say that we're fine. Better, we are in a better place. Not fine, but we're in a better place.
Well, we're certainly happy to hear that. It sounds as if, you know, given your years of expertise, all three of you actually, you are utilizing those skill sets over the years to deal with some of these unpredictable issues that arise with COVID-19. And so I'm going to just turn it over now to Mr. Cole, Trevor Cole. I must say, speaking of technology, one of our co-hosts just got dropped off, Dr. Hardware. We're hoping that she will come back. So go ahead, Mr. Cole.
All right, I think she's back. So Dr. Hardware, welcome back. It happens.
Dr. Hardware is in a first conscience. He's suffering.
Yeah, so colleagues, I mean, I thank you so much. And I can concur with what has been shared, because as a practitioner myself, I understand the challenges, you know, in terms of the need for devices and other support. And it has been a learning experience. But I believe that as a result of the pandemic, I am a much stronger individual and I'm a much stronger principal. I'm sure Dr. Ankle, you can agree, Mr. Bailey, Mrs. Reynolds, you are much stronger today because of all the adversities that we would have experienced. We work with the Ministry of Education, and we know that there have been efforts. And we acknowledge the efforts that they have made, especially through the guidance and counseling unit, to establish the psychosocial sessions in keeping with the National Psychosocial Plan. And in recent times, they would have launched the RRR program and would have provided a psychosocial empowerment session for principals and board members. And I think that was important. I think commendations ought to be given for the ministry for that, because as Mr. Bailey would have said before, that it is, the education system is much more than just the students and the teachers. There are other persons, the watchmen, the ancillary staff, the board members, PT, and so on. So I was happy to see the ministry going in this direction in terms of providing support for principals and for board members. But my question is, though, what are some of the initiatives that you have really seen coming out of the Ministry of Education, and those that you would have implemented to help to manage the effects of the pandemic on the general operations of your school? I'll start with Mrs. Reynolds, and then I'll jump right over to Dr. Ankle. Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Personal experience.
Yes.
Through the ministry collaboration with the Ministry of Education and e-learning, students on PATH, they were able to enjoy devices, laptops. There were several training sessions put on for teachers to learn to use the various platforms, Google Suite in particular.
Yes.
Communication through bulletins, meetings, and support for principals through the QEC and other means. That is what I basically acknowledge as the support provided by the Ministry of Education.
All right, thank you. Dr. Ankle, in terms of support? Yes.
Just to add to what Sophia said,
Yes.
They have given out laptops to PATH students. You know, the PATH students are those who are at the bottom of the pile in terms of financially, and so they wouldn't be able to afford laptops and tablets. So those students, I think, from between grade 10, 11, 12 to 13 were given laptops, the latter part of last school year. In addition to that, you can find programs to support the teaching and learning on TV, Ready TV, TVJ, and the other cable networks and so on. So those are some initiatives that the ministry would have rolled out. Also, the ebook program, or ebook strategy, the textbook program. Those are some things that they would have rolled out to help to manage the teaching and learning in this pandemic, you know. So kudos to them. I know it's not hard, as we all know. It's very fluid, right? Today you plan, and what you plan for today, you have to roll it back. And so they have been trying, considering that the resources are limited. We as a country, we don't have the kind of resources like a Dr. Hardware country, Canada, right? You know, so we work with what we have. And I say kudos to the Ministry of Education for what they have been trying to do to make it right. Yes, things could have been better. And I guess when I get to the last question, I'll say what I want to say on that.
Thank you. And that is why at EduTalk 876, we are acknowledging that we have seen steps by the Ministry of Education to because they're also learning too, because the pandemic is new to all of us, and leadership really matters. And we have seen effort, and we will continue to support and to provide other ideas where necessary. Mr. Bailey, what about you?
Everything that my colleagues have said, I agree with. I want to use this forum to say this. On the 11th of March, 2020, nobody in Jamaica was a pandemic expert.
Mm-hmm.
You check the yellow pages, and you would not find pandemic expert in the book. So I won't be critical of the ministry with limited resources, with little or no knowledge of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
They have tried. I give them credit. They have tried. And, you know, when people criticize the ministry, is in hindsight, because they would have done something. It may not have worked as though we think it should have worked, and so we criticize in hindsight. But as leaders, and Dr. Ankle and Lady Reynolds can say that, as leaders, if you're afraid to shake the tree and to see what falls out, then you're not leading. You have to step out and do something. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. But you can't sit down and say, boy, I'm afraid. You can't do that. Try it. If it doesn't work, you tweak and you move on.
Yeah.
So I give the ministry credit. They have tried. They really have tried with limited resources, and that part I can't leave out. Yes, we'd have liked some things to be done differently, but we will talk about that.
Yes, certainly. And I know that there are initiatives now that are being contemplated for the teachers, and I'm sure it's going to make the system even much better. So yes, we acknowledge the efforts of the Ministry of Education, and we will continue to do our part as well. Thank you, panelists.
Dr. Hardware, may I just add, since you're talking about what the ministry has done,
yes,
the McGraw High School is now enjoying the Google Classroom that the ministry, I'm sure, really put some capital in for schools from primary right up to use, because I know it is also at the tertiary level, and we are enjoying that. We used to have our platform that we used last year and the year and in previous years. We call it the virtual learning environment. And we switched to the Google Classroom this year because we understand that the Google Classroom is 0 rated and therefore more friendly to the pocket of the parents and the students. So that's one more thing that they have done. I know that they are in bilateral talks with the service providers to improve bandwidth and the reach of the internet, because that's another thing that we have to grapple with. And it has to be at the very highest level that is done.
Thank you. Dr. Walker, I think it's over to you. I'm sure you have some more burning questions.
No,
Actually, it's over
Dr. Hardware.
Yes. So Mrs. Reynolds was indeed correct, Dr. Hardware. It is. Yes, we're aware of those talks and also funding of Wi-Fi in public spaces for students and families to access. So initially there were conversations around training for communication and customer service. However, as a part of the initiatives that the Ministry of Education has embarked on, this year, Dr. Juanita Hunter from the educational social worker, who is an educational social worker, at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, shared that there's a partnership with PAHO, that is a Pan-American Health Organization, to offer mental health literacy training for students. So the purpose of this program, of course, is to ensure that students understand and identify mental health issues, which we have identified are rampant in previous series, but there's some, alluding to that in this session as well. So we're wondering, did your school engage in this type of training, or students at your school? And if yes, what are some of the benefits of this training? And if not, do you believe that you and your team need to ensure greater mental literacy? What do you think you could do to ensure greater mental health literacy among educators and students? So it's a two-part question.
I want three.
Is it three? I'm not a math educator. I am language and literacy. But thank you, Dr. Walker. 3 it is.
Who's going to start?
I see Dr. Ankle giving me this smile. He's always smiling like that, like he's revving to go. So how about we take him, then Mr. Bailey, and then we end off with Mrs. Reynolds.
All right. Well, for me, the school that I'm in charge of, we were not engaged in the program that you mentioned to deal with mental health literacy. However, we understand or understood the need to have such a strategy in place. And so we had our own staff development and workshops to address this problem, the psychosocial wellness of teachers, the psychosocial wellness of the admin staff, the psychosocial wellness of the ancillary staff. So when we had our workshop, we did not only invite the academic staff, it was a workshop for everybody. We had a psychosocial workshop for parents as well and students. And for the students, there's a continuous, almost every week, something is done by the guidance. Well, I heard my good friend Valentine said he calls his department family something department. Well, mine is the socio-emotional center, right? That's the guidance counselor department. Right? So they are constantly, that team is constantly engaging the students. Every week something, a video is done to have them in a particular frame of mind and you know, understand and listen to me. Yes, all of us are going through this, but guess what? There's someone you can lean on. You have a challenge, call us up. And I do likewise. I'm sending the motivation to my teachers. I know you're down, but guess what? Your principal is in the trenches with you too. So don't believe that I am hands off and you are all doing the dirty work. I am there with you. If you feel sad, I am sad too. If you're happy, I am happy too. Exactly. So all of that, we are trying our best to make it work from a psychosocial point of view for everyone, teacher, student, parent, the whole lock, stock, and barrel of the group.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ankle. And as you were talking, I see Principal Trevor Cole writing down to say, what can I come up with my name?
Socio-emotional center.
What to call his team. Okay, Mr. Bailey.
Yes. Well, we were not involved in that particular training, but since the closing of schools, we have been actively engaging all our stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, other members of staff. Just Monday, we had a session for parents. We have done it gender-based, where we talk to the fathers only. We have done it with the mothers. We have brought in our teachers, and I want to tell you, we bring them in, we tell them it's a meeting, but we brought them in just to chat. And we eat some food and we laugh and we talk a little and say, all right, they can go home. But we really brought them in just to get them out of the house and to find out, how are you? We keep in touch with our teachers, our students. We visit as much as possible. The demographics of my school, considering some of the communities that my students live. I know Dr. Ankle has that issue too. You have to be careful where you go. You have to, so you have to, where you can visit, you visit. One of the things though, you know, in preparing for this talk, I was looking at the whole thing of mental health. And we know the stigma. Even the name is a problem. So, you know, as of now, because of you, I've changed it to LDS. It's life disrupting syndrome. Yes, because once you say mental, people say you're mad. I want my staff. So when we're having meeting, I'll be sending out LDS that we'll have in a life disruptive syndrome session. That will make it a little bit more palatable. But what we need really is more in-school training or to identify those issues and really how to intervene. How do you help? And the guidance department has been trying. You see, we expand the services because we have our school chaplain, who is also an integral part of the team. He is there, he counsels our teachers. That's his main role. He comes in to talk with our teachers, and they have his number. So it has been challenging. As I said, we spoke to our Ansel staff. You know, one of the things, remember, they're not well paid. Right. And so when you think of the fact that they too will have to keep on their child to find money for data to so on and so, that must be stressful. We have had staff members who would come to school and break down, and you try to find a way to help them. So we have been trying. I want to tell you that's something that we push every week. We inform our form teachers that the form time must be a different kind of form time. And it's even the subject teachers, you know, some of these teachers are innovative. They play music before they start teaching, some nice uplifting music. And they talk about how are you? And so on. So those are some of the things we have been doing. As I said, we would need more training I'm all for training in terms of the LDS area. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, great.
Okay, Mrs. Reynolds, before I hand it over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Walker.
Okay. Dr. Ankle and Mr. Valentine, they said it. The only one that I didn't hear was the exercise sessions that we have as a staff. We exercise together online, and me too, you know. And me too.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and when I tell you that, if you know me, exercising is a pivotal moment. So yes, we let our hair down and we exercise together and so on. And that also helped to build rapport and so. And what I have found, and I'm sure the others agree, is that quite a bit of our staff, we don't really know them, especially the new staff. So we find a number of ways to engage staff so that we can get to know each other in a forum outside of the staff meeting and so on. And that also helps with person's well-being, in addition to the exercise and wellness tips that the nurse and the guidance counselors will give. And since this week, we had such a session where the counselors looked at wellness, and also this is a pandemic and financial constraints is a reality for a number of persons. So we invite persons to come in and, well, online, to talk to teachers as to how to create wealth and stay afloat during this time. So that's another conversation that to me is a part of wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Hardware, are you finished? Like,
Yeah.
Yes,
It's over.
yes.
I did say that, Dr. Walker. It's over to you after Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Shawnee. So, Dr. Hardware, rather. So, I'm in total agreement with everything that I'm hearing, but I'm also a little bit, I'm not going to say disappointed, because I'm Jamaican and I know the context and I know the issues around mental health and I know the stigma around it. We did have in our first and second session, we had educators, we had psychologists on, and we delved into it. And we know that there's a stigma around it, and we know that people keep saying, oh, this mental health issue, you know, but, you know, the thing is, we'd really like to find out this evening, what resources do you essentially need to implement large scale within your own school for long-term effective staff well-being and engagement during this time? Because based on what teachers were saying, you know, we had 3 sessions, and based on what they were saying, they're overwhelmed. You talk about the flexibility with meetings. A lot of them talk about not being able to manage even their home life and their work, because, you know, the boundaries essentially not there anymore. So can you expound or give us any ideas about the resources that you will need or you have implemented large scale for long-term effective staff well-being and engagement? So since Mrs. Reynolds just answered, I'm going to go to Dr. Ankle.
This question is not an easy question to address. You know, but I'll see how best I can attack the question.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, and I was having a discussion with a teacher a few days ago on a similar topic. And one of the things that I told her, I said, I would love for every 8 weeks, my teachers could get a 1 or 2 weeks break from school.
Mm.
To rejuvenate, to recharge, and to revive. Because this virtual school, and I can tell you this, there was one morning I got up, colleague, and I felt like the wall was closing in on me, because the ministry wanted this and they wanted it at a particular time. My education officer wanted this. Teachers were calling me, parents were calling me, and I felt like my head was exploding. And I was in my house and I had to scream.
Wow.
Because it's as if I don't know, I didn't know where to turn, but everything was just coming in at me, right? And I'm saying, here are my teachers who are sitting around a computer screen or a tablet for 8 hours. And can I tell you this too? There are teachers who are so dedicated, Dr. Hardware, amen, that even on a Saturday and a Sunday, they're having classes, you know, because they want to get to their students.
You're talking about me,
right?
Dr. Ankle, who tell you?
And this must be stressing. So I'm saying, if I could get to a place where my teachers could get a 1 week break. If 2 weeks might be a little bit too much, a 1 week break just from this, just to revive and rejuvenate and recharge. I don't know how that can be done. I know the ministry won't go down the road with me, but perhaps, I don't know, in the coming months, we may head north of Jamaica to see how we can get the teachers to put their feet up and relax and let their hair down, even those who don't have any, like Dr. Hardware, myself, right? So you can let your hair down and just relax. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at where this is concerned.
Oh God, that is really a powerful statement that you just made, and I can essentially feel the passion, and I can feel the frustration, I can feel the pain, just emanating even throughout your expressed concern. So thank you so much for that. I know that these sessions that we have been having, it can really be a trigger. So if there's anyone in our audience who is listening and you may feel triggered by what some of our principals are sharing as it pertains to their well-being, we really encouraging you to reach out to, you know, some support at some point. So Mr. Bailey, your perspectives.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we are.
You hear me? All right. I've identified 3 things, and for years I've been looking at some of those things. I think all high schools, and maybe all schools, but for now I'll say high schools, need a human resource department. High schools are a hotbed of human relations, and I think that if this was a mainstay of schools, some of the challenges that we're experiencing now in not being able to deal with some of the psychosocial issues and the challenges that teachers are facing, we would have had a handle on some of them with an HR department that caters to specifically to teachers' welfare and how we take care of our teachers, how we help our teachers. So HR for me is crucial. How do we set up something like that? A couple of years ago, I had a senior teacher who we use as our HR practitioner. She was qualified in that area, and she was making inroads. She provided counseling services. She got psychiatrists. I mean, it was working, but I'll tell you that's another story. Another thing in terms of long term, I want to expand my guidance department. I am trying to get the resources to have a guidance center, actually, where anybody can go. And when I say anybody can go, I mean anybody can go. And the guidance counselors will have their own little rooms to sit and talk to students, parents, teachers, any member, any stakeholder that is affiliated to the school. I wish I had about 5 or more, maybe even 10 guidance counselors. And that might sound a lot, you know, but the truth is, this pandemic has taught us some things. That you saw some teachers in a different prior to, yes. And then since the pandemic, now you are realizing that a lot of your staff members are operating in a facade. It's not true. And that's painful. It's very, very painful. I'm looking right now at about 4 of my teachers who have broken down in front of me. Yeah, we are talking and they just start crying and they're just not coping. It's not just the online, ladies and gentlemen. It's sometimes difficult to separate the personal from your professional, and that mix is creating some problems for some of them.
Absolutely.
And the third thing, and Lady Reynolds talk about exercise. For years, I've been trying to set up a wellness center at my school. For years, where my teachers can go and run on a treadmill and lift some weights, have an instructor help us do some exercise. I exercise, it really does help to release some of the stress. And something like that is, I think, is important. Remember, your whatever vision Dr. Ankle has and Lady Reynolds have, it can't be it can't materialize by circumventing your teachers. You cannot do it around your teachers. So there's a book that says that if you don't feed the teachers, they're going to eat the students. Yes. And the truth is, your staff must be here for, it is weird that we're there for the students, they're the center, but you cannot ignore the welfare and the well-being of your staff.
Absolutely.
In this particular case, I'm zeroing on the teachers, but I'm talking about the staff. And so I would love to have all these things in place for my staff to ensure that whatever ways we can help staff to deal with the challenges. As I say, I'm looking at 4 teachers now, and I know we reach out, we call, but you know, you want to do more, but you're limited. But those are the long-term things I would like for Camperdown. Human Resource Department, expanded guidance program and a section, and a wellness center for staff.
Yes, yes.
We hear you, Mr. Bailey. We hear you, and we are even more so concerned about your own compassion fatigue, because that is also a big issue where principals are now so worried about their teachers and staff that they too are experiencing a whole different dynamics as it pertains to their well-being. So, Mrs. Reynolds, did you?
Yes, thank you. One of the things, in addition to what is said, one of the things is just listen and listen without judging.
Yeah.
There are a few occasions where you ask a question and then it ends up that you triggered something and you realize that the teacher is traumatized, and you could respond by putting on back your VP hat or principal hat and put your foot down and say, no, you can't look at it that way, so. But you realize that this is a human in front of you, and the human is sharing, this person is sharing. Just listen and leave the judgment. The solutions will come, but right now, in the moment, presently, you need to just listen. And then by the time the discourse is finished, you perhaps talk that person off the edge or off the ledge just by listening. So there is that component, being there to support staff, very important, and that is endorsed by my other 2 panelists. Also, I have been looking at mindfulness. Don't fully understand it yet, and I'm thinking that that's the direction that I would like to take the staff, with the endorsement of my principal, to incorporate mindfulness, because every time something comes up that the teachers have to cope with, the students have to cope with, the parents have to cope with, the different levels of staff have to cope with, that is what comes to mind. We cannot necessarily reduce the workload, because guess what? The deliverables remain the same, despite the fact that how we go about doing our work is different, but the outcome needs to be the same. That has not changed. Even though I've explored how it is that we have talked about that as fellow principals, how it is that we can lessen the workload to make life easier for that teacher, this teacher, that department, and so on. We have not come up with the answers yet, because as I said before, the deliverables remain the same. But one thing that keeps coming to mind is mindfulness. So I have been listening to others share what they understand mindfulness to be, but I still have not reached a point where I own it yet. But that's the direction I'm thinking of. So I need support there in terms of helping to train the teachers. The training cannot come from me. because I don't have the capacity right now.
Can I add something, Dr. Hardware?
Go ahead.
And it's-
Go ahead. I see Dr. Walker smiling, so I suspect it's okay to add Dr. Ankle.
And it's
Okay, go ahead.
something to piggyback on what Mr. Bailey said. And whenever we get back to face-to-face in a whole scale manner, I believe we're going to need far more guidance counselors and social workers to help to deal with much of the nuances that we will have to face, both from student point of view, staff generally. Because I feel that many of our stakeholders are going to come to us with bags. Is that totally? I'm expecting that we're going to have to do some re-socialization as we get back into the space, because the students and teachers are going to come with some different kind of behaviors that we'll have to deal with. And the 2 and 3 guidance counselors that we have, I believe they're going to be overwhelmed in the physical space. And so if you ask me, and I'm perhaps just speaking for Mr. Bailey and Miss Reynolds, we're gonna need a broadening of that psychosocial net or that psychosocial platform to deal with much of the issues that we'll have to deal with whenever time we get back into that physical space. You know, when we started school in September, the first week of school, I told my teachers, I don't want to teach not even A to Z, don't teach nothing. Use that first week to develop the psychosocial of the kids. Just reason with them, listen to them, hear them out, because they are going through hell, many of them. And guess what? When we were in the physical space, they could have touched you on the shoulder and said, sir, can I talk to you? Miss, can I talk to you? As it is now, who is it that they're going to touch on the shoulder and say, can I talk to you? They have to suffer in silence. And it's going to play out in the physical space when we get there.
I can hear it again, all the passion, and it is something that is even here right now in Canada. Through research, we're across school boards, even in Ontario here, they're having similar issues where there's essentially lots of research going on and call for additional resources to support students. Teachers, even on our podcast, in our first session, did mention as well that there are students who perhaps would have been, were being abused when they were coming to school face-to-face. And how is that dynamics playing out now that they're doing online virtual learning? So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr.
Hardware.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And you know, the need for mental health support. I know we spoke to some psychologists earlier. And Dr. Walker, I know you had some connection with them after that, so perhaps you could connect Mrs. Reynolds with the psychologist who had mentioned willingness to support educators around that mindfulness activities that she would like to have. Okay, so we're wrapping up, and we thank the members of the audience who are with us from we started. I know it's a bit to sit and be listening for over an hour, so we appreciate your attention. And we've seen people there commenting, so also posting those. Thank you for keeping the chat alive. So my question is, and this is my last question for the night. My question is, we spoke about the need for resources and mental health. But initially, Mr. Bailey, you mentioned around security, and there are some areas in which you cannot, go in your neighborhood. And even in the summer and early fall, there were issues around security, particularly for teachers, right? So what are some of the access to resources? We know that resources matter, context matter, where your school is located, matter as it relates to the safety, safety and security of your students and school staff. So what are some of the changing dynamics around security for your students and staff. You talk about one student staff on face-to-face, then there'll be issues. But are you seeing those safety concerns being played out now, especially since there's this distance with the online learning?
Well, no, the thing now is that the issue of security has fallen right squarely in the lap of the parents, because the students are not physically in our space. And so while school was provided a respite in terms of the kids being away for 7 hours and the parents at work or so on, there are many parents now would have to leave the child at home alone. And so in terms of security now, it is more for the parents. How do they provide someone to monitor the child? What can they do to ensure that the child is safe? So the school has gotten a little relief there in terms of the physical space. The other issue though is with the child being online and nobody is there to monitor. What will the child do? Where will they go? Because they don't necessarily will remain in the class. They can go and venture elsewhere and get lured away by the predators online. So, how do I say it? Unfortunately, the parents now will have to be the persons who will have to ensure that their child is safe. And I know when, again, my colleagues will testify to that, a lot of our students, the face-to-face interaction coming to school provided security for those kids. It was an escape from the community, and the schools are an oasis, right, Dr. Ankle, Lady Reynolds? The schools are an oasis from the community.
Correct, Bridget, you're correct. Right on the point. Yes,
and so it is worrisome. I confess it is worrisome. I can just quickly tell you that we went to look for a student that we didn't see, and when we found her, she was pregnant. But that's not the clincher. That is a major hit. But she was pregnant for one of the criminals in the area.
Ooh.
Yes, and I know that if school was in session, she would have been with us. She would have been with us for 5 days, and she would have escaped that kind of attention and so on. So we still worry about them. They're not there, but we still worry about them. And we try to talk to the parents. Ladies and gents, a lot of our parents, unfortunately, cannot be at home to monitor the children based on the kind of work that they do. A number of my parents are in the service industry. And so, they leave early in the morning and they might come back 11 o'clock in the night. Quite a number of my parents do security work. And you know that they'll be out for a day or so. So it is really challenging, and you pray more than anything else for your kids. And as I say, you try to keep in touch. You try to see what you can do. But it's challenging. It's really challenging.
Okay, thank you for sharing that so candidly, Mr. Bailey. We'll go to Mrs. Reynolds and then to Dr. Ankle, and I'll pass over to Mr. Cole, who will be closing off the questions.
I can identify with what Mr. Bailey has said. Yeah, I have some anecdotal experiences where that is concerned in terms of girls falling pregnant, But looking at the online space now, which the grade 7 to 10 exist on, so to speak, and the 5th form and the 6th formers are the ones, the exam students are the ones coming in now. We are faced with some amount of cyber bullying. And it is not only targeted to fellow students, but also to teachers. A couple of days ago, I was having a very good day, things, getting done, and, then I got a message from a colleague saying, and when I read it, and I said, the student deliberately targeted the teacher in inappropriate statement he or she said. And I was saying to myself, look at that, we were having a good day, so to speak, and then this happens. And we cannot be ostriches. These things will happen. The students will take out their frustration one way or the other on teachers and their peers. So we have to deal with it and have to be realistic that these things happen. Despite the fact that at the beginning of the year, each term, we would have orientation, and one of the things that we would look at is rules for online engagement. And cyberbullying is a no-no, zero tolerance. And yet you still have one or two students who still step out and are guilty of that. And of course, you know that it undermines the teachers, and it also undermines the students in the class, because they are seeing these things happening too, and they are perturbed by it. So you have to nip it in the bud and deal with it very quickly. So that is what we're grappling with. So far, with the fifth formers and sixth formers coming in, we were anticipating the social issues and so on. Some of it is there, for example, the uniform and so on, but you put your foot down and nip it in the bud quickly, and they quickly conform. So bottom line is, there is hope. You just have to stick with it and be consistent and stand your ground and maintain your standards.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. So Dr. Ankle, and then I'll pass over to Mr. Cole.
For us, Dr. Hardware and other members, for us, let me start here. We are surrogate mothers and fathers. And COVID has removed a surrogate fence of protection from our children. And so it is now left to the parents, the real parents, mothers and fathers, to take care and to provide the safety net and the security for these children. Prior to COVID, I'll get a call, and I'm sure the same thing for Mr. Bailey and Ms. Reynolds. I would leave my desk and go in search for a student. Sometimes we go into bad communities, but I take the chance. I'm a risk taker, right? I put my body in the line of duty to save a student, to save a girl, to save a boy, right? But know that that is not there. The parents are the ones who are left to deal with this safety. And as my colleague, Mr. Bailey, said, they have to work. And so our students are now exposed to these pedophiles and the dark side of the internet. And we try to put something out there to say, okay, make sure your cameras are on so that we can know that you're in school. And they give you all kind of reasons why the camera can't be on. So the camera is closed, and we gonna girl bush, we gonna boy bush, we gonna man bush, we gonna every other bush except
all
the
the
learning bush.
bushes.
All the different bushes except the learning bush. Right? And so we are caught in a kind of a quandary. How do we deal with this? Right? It is, there's very little that we can do from where we are, because they are no longer in our space, and that's the reality. And these students are being abused. They were being abused in the when we are face to face. No, it worse. I can tell you, no, it worse. Children, there are several of my girls who would have had children, and they are in school still. And if school opens tomorrow morning, they come into school, but there's a child left at home. That's the reality we face. How we put that security fence around them as it is right now. I don't know where the teachers are concerned. As Sophia said, bullying, teachers are being bullied. There are all kind of nastiness and pornography that persons get into their classrooms and place it into the classrooms. Trust me. It's difficult. It's difficult, but we're trying to put all the safety net in place. But sometimes those who are far advanced with the technology, they beat us every time.
Well, thank you for that very spirited comment, Dr. Ankle, and for Mr. Bailey and Mrs. Reynolds. So your comment to that question. Mr. Cole, take us out with your questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hardware. Principals and vice principal, the chat has some comments. Persons are sending me messages on my phone. They love your passion and the sincerity that is just pouring out. You know, we want to commend you. To close off, we heard reports for last year, the 2020-21 school year, that over 120,000 students were missing from online classes, largely because of the perennial issues, internet connectivity, lack of device, and so forth. And the government has tried, as we have said, to improve internet connection across the school space and so on. I have two questions. How have these initiatives improved students' access to online learning? Yes, the connectivity, the devices, and so on. And the final question would be, how or what remains to be done to improve students' access, engagement, retention in online school? Because the challenges are real, and you have alluded to them so ably. So what are the initiatives to improve students' access, and what remains outstanding that can be done for us to provide access to our children? Dr. Ankle, I'll start with you, then Mrs. Reynolds and Mr. Bailey.
All right, we are concerned at Johnson Grant High School. We saw the lack of instruments or gadgets that were needed. You would get the calls left, right, and center.
Right.
We would have gone off on a drive. As I said, I'm a professional mendicant, and I make that. I'm gonna beg if I can. When I can't, I buy when I beg and I don't get. That is when I buy. I don't buy first. I beg first, right? And so I would have gone out there and begged past students, beg stakeholders, help me get the gadgets.
Yes.
And see what can be done. Luckily for us, the Past Student Association, not as powerful as my friend from Camperdown, managed to give us over 217 tablets and laptops. And so we were able to spread that to students who did not have the gadgets and so on. But here is a problem, Dr. Hardware, Mr. Cole, Dr. I'm missing the name or something, covering the name.
Walker.
Walker. Many of the students don't have internet, they don't have Wi-Fi, but they want the gadget. I don't know what you're gonna do. Them all play games with it. So that's part of the thing. So we would have done all of that, but they don't have internet where they are. So what we do is we ask a small group of them, because one of the things that we did over the last couple of months, it was to broaden our internet capacity. Our internet capacity was not serving the entire school. So what we did was to open up it and spend a lot of money, millions of dollars we're spending to upgrade so that you can pick up the internet anywhere on the campus. You can pick up internet and Wi-Fi anywhere on the campus. Right? That's so good. And the government not paying for that. Let me say that. Nobody from Ministry online.
You have to send them the bill.
Right.
Continue, sir.
I understand they're trying to roll it out, not roll out some broadband for school, so we don't have to pay. It don't reach me yet. right? But we are spending US money every month to pay this bill, right? So we have to be doing all of that just to reach students and say, you don't have internet where you come from in the hills of St. Catherine. All right, come down to school, sit under the gazebo, sit on the area and get little thing here and there. That's some of the things. So if I have to jump to the seventh and last question, Mr. Cole, is it the government needs to purpose in their hearts and say, listen to me now.
Let's tell a check to Mr.
I'm going to spend this amount of money to ensure that broadband gets to the nook and cranny of every part of this little country. So those in the hills of St. Catherine and Westmoreland and wherever, will, if them even climbing a tree, they'll get some internet. As it is right now, they are struggling. So I'm calling out the government. Government, you need to do something about this. You have had enough time to get this ready, right?
We're going to tweet it out.
Thank you, Dr. Ankle. Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you. In the summer, there was a ministry representative that came to the school and did an infrastructure, ICT, that is information computer technology infrastructure audit. Felt good now and said, right, this is promising and so on. All in aid of the broadband that should have reach across Jamaica, you know. And they're looking at different schools and their needs and so on. And I said, I hope they hurry up. I hope they hurry up. But you know, the wheels turn as fast as the wheels turn.
Yes.
But in the meantime, as a school, in September, I was heartened. I was so pleased when I saw many parents and many students coming in with gadgets saying, I want to get online. How do I get online? And so on. So we helped them quick to get online because support staff were diverted to just that. So as they came on campus, they are greeted and say, all right, let me get you in classes and so on. And then in September, the number of persons online, the number of students online was much higher than the previous year. All right. The previous year, we were sitting at about 40. And then with in September, with the interventions on our part, it started to sit at about 70 or more.
Oh.
And felt good. And I said, yes, man, we're reaching more students. Therefore, you know, school, we are more impactful as a school. Then I started to hear the complaints from the teachers saying that they're not seeing so-and-so and so-and-so in classes. And I'm saying to the teachers, they basically ran me to the ground saying that they want to get into that class and that class and that class. And I helped them to get into those classes. Where are they now? Back to the point about retention. They have come in, they're basically now in classes, but we need to work on retaining them and help to continue the traction and the momentum that we had in September. And that is where the quagmire is now, that is where the discussion is now. How do we keep them online? Because the realities come back, you know, they don't have internet and they don't have Wi-Fi. Yes, they have the device, and yes, in September, the parents were gung-ho and provided the internet and so on. But now, you and I know that the parents have to be thinking limited resources, food, Wi-Fi. Wow. So that is where we are right now. That's the reality. So how do we retain those that have come on and don't lose them? That's the question.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Reynolds. Mr. Bailey?
Let them go.
You're muted, Mr. Bailey.
Sorry about that. Yes, Dr. Ankle and Lady Reynolds, in terms of access, they have said exactly what the challenge is. It's good to have the device, but if you don't have internet and or Wi-Fi, then it's another problem. So they would rely on data, but you need money for data. And the truth is, ladies and gents, with the limited resources and the challenges that some of our parents face, in that case, you buy food or you buy data. Food or data.
Yeah.
And food is going to win.
Of
More
course.
so if there are 5 mouths to feed food is going to win. So you will see a child Monday, and you don't see the child till the next Tuesday. And the truth is, it's not that the child doesn't want to be in school, but there are real issues. We have had students who, when we found them, the two sisters sharing a phone. The mother, and it's the mother's phone, by the way, and the mother needs a phone to do some work, and I put work in quotation. So the access is challenging. I agree with Dr. Ankle. Government might have to now set up internet hubs as a public good. Just as how you go around setting up parks, you may have to now look at internet hubs as a public good. It is the norm.
Good suggestion coming out.
In those remote areas, Dr. Ankle, where we know that it's going to be a challenge in the long run. So it might not be everywhere, but you can now strategize and put in those things. For me, engagement and retention is, believe it or not, I believe it's going to be the purview of the parents. Yes, a teacher can have an engaging class. I think my wife's classes are engaging. Yes, she's a teacher of modern languages, excellent teacher. I think her classes are engaging, but the students are still missing. And when you check, you find that for the most part, the students are at home alone.
Yes.
They are home alone. And then when you look at the reverse of those who are consistently on, there is someone there who is monitoring the students. So I don't know how we're going to solve the retention and engagement problem. And again, colleagues, ladies and gents, remember, these parents have to work. That's how they eat. That's how they pay the little money for the rent and so on. And so it is challenging. Access we might can improve, but retention and engagement is going to be a challenge. Yes.
Wow. Thank
I
you.
I must say this. I must say this before you go in. I must. If I don't say this, I would not have been on this program. I must say this.
Your wife is a good teacher.
Listen to me. The latter part of last school year, one of my police friends, right, sent me a photograph. The three of my boys who were supposed to be in school. What were they doing? At the time when he sent the picture, the photograph, school was in full flight. This was at night. This was in the middle of the day. They were scamming. And they were supposed to be in class, you know. One had $60,000 on him and could not give an account for the $60,000. You know what he told the police? He's gonna pay school fee. I'm asking him.
This is serious.
It's a university fee, my pay. When did we ever charge $60,000 at Jonathan Grand High School? 3 boys. Good. So retention we're talking about. So they are doing all kind of things, all kind of nefarious activities.
Wow.
Okay, Javi, I thought you were also going to say your wife is a good teacher, like Mrs. Bailey, but that's also very good.
No, my wife is a good teacher too.
Okay.
Mrs. Reynolds, they're leaving you out. Your husband is a good teacher as well?
No, he's a good security system network person. So if you need cameras and so on. Back to the point about security.
Absolutely.
Yes, the parents may need to set up cameras in the bedroom and so on.
Yes, for sure.
They might have put one on their heads.
Wow, what a session. What a session.
So we have heard so much this evening. We've heard a lot about, student engagement. How do we retain that as well? You've also spoken a lot about the well-being of staff, and how another thing that we're also hearing is, that gap. How do we account for the learning that would have essentially been lost over the past year? And so with all your given suggestions and everything, I know in our headline, we talk about principals' well-being, but I just want to ask you to just give perhaps an advice to principals or to teachers or school leaders out there who are listening in or maybe listening after this session. What advice would you give them to essentially balance their work and occupational well-being? Just one advice. Who would like to go first?
Let me go first.
Okay. Okay,
Change what you can and leave what you can't change.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be tweeting that out. Change what you can and leave what you cannot. We know the ending. Okay, next one. Mrs. Bailey, Mrs. Reynolds, my apologies.
Cultivate a spirit of mindfulness, although I'm learning to do that myself. Positive mindset. Always think positive, acknowledge the feelings that you're having, but reframe and look at it in a positive light.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Bailey.
You know, I don't have any smart comment like Dr. Ankle or Mrs. I don't have any soundbite. I just, when I'm in the valley, I just talk to the Father. When I'm on the top of the mountain, I talk to the Father. I just keep holding on to God and believe. You say I'm an optimist, and I'm an optimist because of God. I say, you know what? It's going to get better, you know. So I'll continue. So I say that to my colleagues. Let us hold on to the Father, and it's going to get better. And when it's not good, we still hold on to the Father. Eh?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
You could sing that song, Sir Bailey. Things are going to get better.
Yes, sir. I can't sing though.
Thank you so much. Are we? We have some.
Yes, the chat has been busy, but we're right up on time. Dr. Hardware and Walker.
Yes.
Yes, we are at the end. As a matter of fact, we're 7 minutes over. I'm not quite sure if there's any member of the audience who have a very burning question that they could pose, and that will be addressed. We'll provide space for that for a minute or two. Unfortunately, we didn't get the opportunity to provide space for the audience to ask questions, but I see people are commenting on the value of the information shared. So thank you for being here. If you have any questions, please post them and we could follow up with you. Read the questions that you've posted. If not, then I haven't seen any. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Walker to finish, to close us off.
Uncle, you're being commended. There is a parent of a child at your school. The parent said, my daughter, her name is Teresa Brown. She said, my daughter attending Jonathan Grant High School. Mr. Ankle is the best principal. Wow.
Yes. Shawnee Hardware says that I love Mr. Bailey's idea about guidance center. There are so many others. Raquel Brown. People need people. So we're getting the feedback from the audience.
Yes. All right. Continue.
Someone says, thank you for sharing this nice comment. Lovely discussion, colleagues. I truly found the comments to not only be sentimental, but genuine. But genuine. Wow. Awesome. Dr. Walker.
Yeah. So we want to thank all of our panelists this evening, Dr. Ankle, Mrs. Shorter-Reynolds, and Mr. Bailey, for your time and your really sharing of your experience, quite invaluable, and the passion that you expressed with. We are taking all of those into consideration in addition to your recommendations. Special thanks also to our viewers and others who have made this possible. And as we continue the conversation with our principals, there will be another session coming another time. Please remember to share others. Find us also on social media, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. And so just to let our audience know that while we will be talking to principals at some other point, our next session will be looking at our children's mental health. So you look out for that quite soon. That will be perhaps in the second week in December. Dr. Hardware will be the lead on that. So I'm certain that all will go well. So I want to thank you again. Mr. Cole, can you close us out with our song? And
One second, please. So Nikisha had asked a question just now about school has resumed since August 2020, and we have seen expected learning and behavioral gaps. How are principals proactively planning for reopening? So that's the question from Nikisha Hardware, my namesake. So we have to take it. Favoritism here. Just a very quick comment before we leave there. So how are principals proactively planning for reopening in light of behavioral gaps?
You mean general reopening or?
Yes.
Reopening, yes.
Because some of us have reopened. We have well, I know Sophia and Valentine, we have our grade 11s and some 6th formers are in, right? But if it's general, of course, we're gonna be planning when we get there, right? We're expecting that January we're going to have some school. I know if it's even a phase basis, we may take on probably the grade 7s or the grade 8. We have not heard anything from the government yet, but we are always in a planning mode. We're always in a planning mode. There's never a moment that we're not planning, right? As Mr. Bailey said in the opening, we have 3-4 different plans. I remember when I did my calendar of activities, I had 3 different calendar activities, a regular one, a COVID one, and a COVID
Yes, it's true.
B one. Just in the event something happens. And things did happen.
Yeah.
So we're always planning.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ankle. We want to share that Dr. Ankle is also an author. You just give you half a second to tell us about your book.
Well, it's a motivational, inspirational, spiritual book, right? If you feel down, if you feel like you're not getting anywhere in life and you just want something to push you on, read this book. Why only 2 slices of the bread? Why would you want only 2 slices when you can get the entire bread, when you can get the entire bakery, when you can get the entire field that grows the field that grows the wheat? Why not take even the workers of the bakery? Why not take the van that carries the bread? I don't want 2 slices. I am greedy. I am hungry for success. And I want my students to have the same.
I am coming to purchase my copy.
Energy.
I'm coming to get my copy, Dr. Ankle.
yes.
No problem.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time and for your contribution to our podcast this afternoon. Continue to be safe, sanitize, wear your mask, social distance, take care of yourselves. Bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Walker, Dr. Hardware, and Sir Cole.
Please do not leave, our panelists. We would like to have you on just for 2 minutes.
Yes, the book is on Amazon.
Thank you.
Right.
Lead us out with that music, Mr. Cole.
Yes, I shall.